Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the More Money Show comes in. If you're ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this show. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and today I have with me Kate Kretzinger. We are already laughing before, so you know this is going to be an amazing
Of course.
So welcome, Kate.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So this is a special, I'm doing this interview series to help people learn more about stepping into their future selves, because I think that's one of the questions I get the most. And I believe you do it through doing something like we did, like Future Self Retreat, a lot of different things where you consciously choose as well going into it, like I'm going to be my future self. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Of course, we just spent couple days. I'm like, I don't remember how many days. It felt like a lot of days, but
It did. It was awesome.
It was so awesome. At the Paradise Valley Castle in Arizona, which you can, if you want to see where we were, you can go to paradisevalleycastle.com and check that out. If you decide you want to have a girlfriend's weekend there, just mention me and they'll give you 10% off, which is really cool. Yeah. That's a huge that's a huge manifestation, right? You can
Absolutely.
an extra day. You could do a lot with that.
Yes. And I manifested that trip. So it was even better.
Yes. Right. You did. You did. All of you did, which is so awesome.
So awesome.
Oh, so that's where we're going to start, because that's where we always start. Tell me something awesome.
So awesome for me is that I just had just came back from the trip. And I was just telling you, it feels like I've been on vacation for a while, because I came back from my trip with you, which was just absolutely amazing. And then this weekend was just an amazing weekend. So we had beautiful weather here. So I brought the beautiful weather from Arizona back here, because when I left, it was a big snowstorm.
Right.
So.
Which is another good manifestation, right?
Yes.
None of us manifested not being in big snowstorms.
That's right. That is so right. I didn't even think of that. And the snow was gone when I got back, so it was even better. So yeah, it was just a gorgeous weekend, and I loved it, and I just didn't want it to end.
Yes.
But today's been just as awesome. So.
I love that. That's the magic, when the day in your business is just as awesome as your life days, right? Your vacation days.
Yeah, because I was thinking that this morning. I was like, because I didn't sleep well last night, and I was like, normally in the past when that would happen, I'd be like, I got to go to work. I was like, I get to go to work today. I've got this many clients. I'm talking to Cassie. Like I was just like all excited about it, and so it's just really funny, the two differences, like when you're working for yourself and we have to go to work for somebody else.
Yes.
It's totally different.
It's totally different. I love it. So you have done a lot. We've been working together for right about a year at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so we've worked a lot on your future self, and you've stepped into her a lot in huge ways. What's the difference between going to Arizona and doing an event or a retreat or something specific like that with the intention of stepping into her, versus sort of just doing it on the everyday, which is also awesome? But what's the difference, or where's the power?
There is a different power to that, as you were saying. That's a good word for that. The difference is that it just seems like it's more of a magnitude versus like the stuff that we do every day. It's huge too, but I think when we actually go away to do something and definitely prepare as your future self, it totally sets. I don't know. The energy is just totally different than. Yeah, you got it. You're doing it every day. We're doing the work every day. That stuff does help. But there's just something more about it, like a higher vibration, a higher energy, around that, because you're with more than just yourself working on it. You're with all these other amazing women that are trying to do the same thing. And so I think that just brings more energy to what we're doing. So it feels more powerful, if I could use that word. It was just amazing, and it starts I could just go on forever, but I was going to say it just
That's
started
okay.
right off. I was at the airport and I already got an email from somebody saying that they wanted to meet with me because of a post that I had done. Like every time I do something like this, I constantly get people reaching out to me and I'm not even working.
Right? I
They
know.
just
It's my
reach out.
favorite.
I love that. And so it's all of that has just been amazing. Like you gave us these lovely journals and I scripted out. I showed up how I wrote down how all my scripts were being present in the moment. And I filled up a page and a little bit of the other one. And how it just kept showing up. And I'm sure I missed some because I didn't have it on me at the whole time, but I'm sure I missed some things. But as I sit here and I think about the days, I'm like, oh, that showed up too. I better write that down. And, it's just so much more powerful when we go in person. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Me too. It's so fun. And I love, because I love that you brought up that you got the client, because obviously, or, somebody reached out to you, because I was obviously going to ask about that. Because like last time you got like all of these people, and I say it all the time, like it's who you're being. It's when you be your future self, you get clients and stuff, but that is the real, like, oh, I'm literally on a plane. It's what builds that trust in that. That's a little bit different than like, oh, I'm going to go get coffee. Right. Which is awesome. And it's practice. And it's what allows us to show up into events like this bigger, right? It's
Absolutely.
all part of it. We can't discount anything, but stepping in and being like, oh yeah, I'm not working and I'm getting people reaching out to me is what solidifies that trust in that even more.
Absolutely. And I think it was a total of, I want to say 3 people that day that reached out to me, and they were all on different levels. It was, cause I wrote it down in my I Am Successful book.
Love it. Kate does her homework. If you ever like, Kate does her homework always.
And I love doing it. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's not like when people think homework, they think that it's not fun, but this is fun homework. I love it. So yeah, I got an email about my Facebook message on PMS and helping this woman with PMS. I got that. And then I got an email to be on my podcast, which I thought was really cool.
Yes.
Asking me to be on my podcast. And then I also got an email from an old client wanting to return to come back to work with me again. And this one I thought was the best. So I found a penny after our photo shoot.
It was the best.
It was so awesome. And the fact that it wasn't just me cheering, everybody else was cheering, because usually it's just me. So that made it that much more fun too. It was awesome.
Oh my gosh. It was honestly one of my proudest moments as a coach, because like, it was like we're in this place and it's still like, we still do the things and we celebrate it. And then it's like, everyone is like, yeah, I feel like Elizabeth, our amazing photographer, was a little like, oh, like,
yes. But the funny thing is that's how I react every time I find a penny, right? Or it doesn't have to be just anything. And that's the look that Elizabeth gave us, was the look that my husband gives me every time. You think he'd be used to it by now.
Right? Oh, it was there. If there was one thing I wish we could have recorded, like we would have seen coming, right? It's that moment. Like, cause then and everybody was just like, yeah, like, yes, you found a penny, right?
It was so awesome.
Which is the same way. I mean, it was so awesome. And when you showed up, but it's the same way. We always talk about this, but there's a really good live example is, celebrate that like it's 10,000 or $1 million, like it's the money, right? Yeah. It is the exact same way we celebrated your extra $50,000 manifested when you showed up to the castle, right?
I got that on video. Your reaction was awesome.
I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I have the full total, actually.
Yes, let's
total,
hear it.
So it's $110,155.78.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Yay! How does that feel?
It feels awesome. And I love that. I think what we talked about, it just makes me giggle every time I think about that conversation before I told you, because I didn't want to tell you via text. I didn't want to tell you via email. I want to tell you in person to your face. And And I remember after we celebrated, you said, because you had put the intention out there that I was going to make 80,000. We were going to do my 80,000 photo shoot,
Yep.
$80,000 photo shoot, excuse me. And it was funny because I even said that at first. I was like, oh, this is so close. I haven't gotten there yet, but that's okay. Cause you probably come a couple of days later is what I kept saying to myself. And it came a couple of days prior, and it happened to be my student loan forgiveness. So I was like, oh, this is so awesome. Not so much forgiveness. It just came off my credit.
Right.
My
It's
credit.
got,
So,
which comes off of your head, right? Like it is I mean, I think that it gets like 50,000, but I thought about this afterwards too, like the weight and the freedom and all of that, it's like way worth more than $50,000.
oh, hell yeah.
The space that it opens up in your life. And a couple months ago, we're talking about, when you'll be working, saving for financial freedom, there will be no more payments to anyone else, other than a mortgage, and
Right.
what that looks like. Right. And it just like speeds that up, and all because you started becoming that person months ago.
Yes. So true. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
Me too. So fun. And it was so fun to get to do it in person.
Oh my gosh, it was so fun to do in person. And I loved your reaction. It was way better than had I texted you. It was so funny because I was telling Michelle on the ride there, I was like, I have to tell you because this is what's going to happen and I need someone to videotape it. And she's like, oh, I will. And she goes, and anytime that happens, she goes, text me. I'm the one that does all that stuff for her behind the scenes. And I was like, oh, because I was like, I need to get the money for that. Like I should have the prop money for that. And I was like, oh, shoot. And I didn't think to text her ahead of time. So, but anyway, it was fun. It worked out perfect.
It totally worked out perfect. So I ordered extra prop money because I knew as soon as you guys you were going to manifest more money as soon as you said yes, right?
That's right. That's so great.
Yeah.
And then can we just talk about the house too?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So it's so funny that you had sent the link and said, this is where we're going to stay. And the first picture that pops up is the kitchen.
Yes.
And what's really funny is that I showed it to David. I was like, this is the kitchen. I said, you remember my vision board before I started working with Cassie, the vision board of the kitchen that I had? He goes, yeah. I said, look at this. And he goes, oh my God, it looks almost exactly the same. I said, I know, which was really cool.
Yes.
And the only difference was that there was a fireplace but there was a fireplace here just on the other side.
Yes.
Right? Open concept, right? So it was just so awesome. But the fact that I saw the kitchen, I was like, I gotta go. I mean, I based it on the kitchen picture, not on anything else. And then I was like, I gotta go. But the fact that I was so excited to go do that. And the initial plan was, we get our own food, we take care of ourselves. And I'm used to doing that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I had planned on stopping after the airport, picking up my food and then cooking for myself, for the whole time that I was there. And just a couple days prior to leaving, you reached out to me and you're like, how'd you feel about cooking? And I was like, what? Are you kidding? I was like, yes. Do you realize how happy I made me? And it's right. It is stepping into my future self because I do entertain my family and some friends. And that's just exactly how I felt. I felt like I was with family when I was there. And some of them were the first time I met in person, but it felt like I'd known them forever. Yeah. It was just such a magical experience. And as I was cooking, it was just fun to have everybody in the kitchen with me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They were all in there with me laughing and talking and listening to the amazing stories and the conversations that were going on around me. It was just so fun. And I think I'm a big believer in the energy that we put into our food, like as we're cooking, everybody else gets that too. And that's why it always tastes so good. And I think that was a perfect example of because I was in good energy, really excited. I mean, looking at the pictures, how I was smiling, I was so happy. I mean, I'm just like all over the place right now, but it was just awesome. The whole experience was awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't like my kitchen when I came home. I was like, this is too small.
Which I loved when you said that this morning. It was such a great call. I didn't have time to say everything I wanted this morning, but I was like, awesome, because now you know what your next kitchen, you're house hunting, what it's supposed to feel like, and you're not going to be even tempted a little bit to settle.
Nope.
right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It
Because I
might
know
not,
what it feels like.
yeah, you know what it feels like. And it might not end up on that grand scale, or it might, but it's that feeling, like,
What it
inside
feels
what
like.
that feels like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I loved how it had like the double ovens packed on top, it stacked on top of
Yes.
each other, the gas stove in the center. That's what I want. And
Yeah.
just in marble. Yeah, it was just in the backsplash of the stone. I was like, yep, and the archway stoned. I was just like, yep, this is everything. Everything that I had on that vision board.
Oh my gosh. And now I have to see the vision board, because I think this is the first time I'm hearing. I mean, I heard you say it's my dream kitchen. I didn't know it was on a vision board, which is
Yeah, it
amazing.
was my vision board I did. I want to say it was before you and I started work. It was
Yeah.
probably a year before you and I started working together. I had
Yeah.
a vision board, and that was on it when we were just starting to house look at that point. And yeah, I was like, this is what I want the kitchen to look like. And I started cutting out pictures to show David, this is what I want. He goes, oh, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. He goes, I would love that too. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this on a vision board. And so I did. I started sticking it on the vision board. So yeah, I'll have to pull it out for you. I'll just search
Yeah,
for it.
I love it. And then how cool is it going to be? I don't know what else is manifested on that vision board, but how cool is it going to be to replace the picture of you in that actual kitchen with
Yeah,
yourself in it?
that's going to be awesome.
Oh my God, right?
And it's going to be so awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh,
Good
so
stuff.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it totally is.
I love it so much. It's so fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you said yes for the kitchen, which I think is powerful and important, because I think you have grown to understand the power of going to get that experience, right? Even if you have to fly across the country and get on a flight to like get the experience, like
Yeah.
it's so worth it. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's funny because the last time, I mean, I grew leaps and bounds the last
Yeah.
time, and it's funny because I've noticed it even like with the first couple of workshops I had, I grew leaps and bounds, and now it's just deeper when I do these, and I have to really not search for it, but I it's something that is not. It's more subtle than more like in your face, and
Yes.
so traveling, and I think this is why it worked out so well. I don't know if you remember this conversation, was that I couldn't get into any of the workshops, and I needed to get into the, I say needed. I love doing them every 3 months.
Yes. Yes.
So
He's a good student.
yes, I try, right? And so I
Yeah.
try, if it's not, I like the two if not, I'll squeeze in two. But I don't like it going any more than 3. And I couldn't figure it out for my schedule. It wasn't working. And you just said to me, well, maybe it's just, you just need to come in person. That's, and I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. And then of course, these thoughts start going through your head. How is that going to happen? When is it? And then I just let it go. I didn't say anything more than that. And the one that you originally had planned, I couldn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, I'm not gonna be able to make that one, but she'll have more later on. And when I let that go, that's when you're like, hey, don't schedule anything, change of dates, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when you sent it to me, the new dates, I was like, oh my gosh, this so works. This is it. And then as I started really going into it, I figured out the whole trip came to $105 for me. That's what I paid. It was $105.
Amazing.
Great?
Amazing. It is. And it's so to the power of when we say yes, like when you say yes first, instead of calculate the cost, like $105. Like, I mean, that's probably what you would have spent on your own meals for 3 days anyway. Right?
Yes, it would have been.
I mean?
It's exactly what it would have been.
So yeah, it probably nets zero. And I love that you shared that, because there's such power. And that's one of the harder things to teach, is like when you say yes, stuff starts lining up. It's not when we wait for things to line up that it happens, right? We say yes.
Yeah. And speaking of things lining up, so I got the plane ticket. Things were getting tight with money because of the clients haven't been coming in, regularly, because all my clients paid up front at the beginning of the year.
Yes,
So,
right?
so I was managing that, right? So then I was like, okay, how am I going to make this happen? And so I was like, I'm just going to trust if it comes together, then I'm supposed to be there. And so I signed up. I found that I had points for my flight. So there goes that. I had points for my rental car. There goes that. But then another manifestor that was going in the Enchanted Circles offered to pick us all up. So we just had to pitch in for that. So even better, so I had that. And then the private room. I mean, that was a big worry of mine. And just because I have allergies, and when I do that, sometimes I snore, and I don't like to do that with people around. It's embarrassing for me. And so I ended up getting a private room. I was like, see, when you just like say yes, you just show up, everything happens. And it did. Everything was perfect. I had my room to myself. I had my dream bathroom, actually. The shower was perfect. I had the kitchen. I mean, everything was perfect. Because I'm on East Coast time, I got up earlier than everybody else. And I went out and I did my meditation in the hammock by the pool. And in one of my scripts, I go and sit out by the water, the ocean, and I script and do my meditation. So I was able to do that. And I was talking about the birds. I heard the birds. I heard the plane in the background. I mean, all of this stuff was coming was unwinding the next morning, the official morning of us doing our pictures. And I was like, oh my God, this is all so magical. Like it's all just coming true. Like not just the script. I mean, like some that we did just for the workshop that I just scripted once, all that was coming out too. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So yeah, just saying yes opened up all of that. And I was like, wow, this is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely possible. And everything, the flight there went smoothly. Everything there went smoothly. Coming home went smoothly. Everything was just, and what was really cool was that when I got off the plane in back home in Manchester, I got off the plane, someone goes, hi, Kate. And I just kept walking. And then I was like, wait, someone actually did say my name. And I was like, no, there's not too many Kates. And I turned around and this lady that worked in the airport I knew very well. I had no idea she worked there. And I was like, so I felt like, being the part of being important and people knowing who I am. So she gave me a big hug. I got to see her. She gave me this, gives amazing hugs. And then David picked me up from the airport. We went food shopping to get food. And then I knew more people there. And so everyone was like, hey, Kate. And I was like, oh, see, I'm being noticed. I am successful.
Yes. Yes.
So all of this stuff was unfolding even after I left.
I love it. And it will continue, right? What do you think is the biggest thing that's going to keep going forward? Like, how do you think it's going to change the way you go through today and tomorrow and next week?
More trust. I mean, my lesson this time around was trusting because, there was a little bit of those, it's never 100%. And it's just less now. And you have to look for that stuff more often. And so for me, I had those little thoughts in the background. How are you going to make this work? And I just kept saying, okay, let it go. Stop. Don't go down there. Don't go down that road. I was saying my little mantras that I have on my computer anytime those things would pop up. And so I always say, I have it all. I am successful. All that when I would catch myself. So I still think it's trust for me but it's just a deeper level. And I know I have it. I just need to step into it more. And because I think that was because I was sitting on the plane on the way home. I was like, okay, so what are the lessons that I learned this time? Yeah. And every one that kept popping up was trust. And it was just amazing. I was like, oh, this is great. It's just a deeper level. That's all. So I think, moving forward, that's what's going to help me with all the things that are changing is the trust and trusting more and trusting deeper. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. And that prepares me knowing you, because I have seen it over the last 3 months, which is also why we have a coaching session this week, but you guys are getting a preview of that, right? Things, I wouldn't say that there was a lull, right? There was sort of this lull. Yep. And I for sure see it as you being called to be a little bit higher, like to grow, to be the even better version. So sorry for that little blip, but what I have seen over the last couple of months is you being called to be this higher, this, I hesitate to say better version of you, but it's this more expanded coach. You're being called to raise your coaching ability, the space you hold, all things like that. And this trust that you've just built in this last week is what's going to help you step into that more and help you see that more and become that more. And so I'm super excited for that.
And I love that you say that. I'm super excited about that too. And the client that I had before this was just exactly what you said. And I needed to be in that space to be able to coach him. So it was perfect. And the fact that I was able to say it, and it's because I've experienced it and I know how to take care of that. And I think because it comes more from, I don't know how to say this the right way, but the words are not coming to me, but it comes from love and from a good space versus I'm just coaching him, because I've been there and I can empathize with him and I can sympathize with him and know how he's feeling. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh man. And I love how you started to answer the next question I was going to ask. Yeah. What's the difference between like the up-leveled version of you as a coach? And I think you gave a great example, right? It's like just coaching versus this, because we can all use the tools that we learn in whatever program you are, right? There's sort of this list that you go through, but there's a difference when you really start to step into that. I think you've done parts of that for a while, but I think you're going to get called a lot. Your clients are going to call you higher, right? The higher ones that they're ready to show up, the ones who need a little bit more, that need the more understanding, they need more than the tools, right?
Yes. And I think you're right. I mean, this year that we've worked together, it's been that way with all of my clients, and noticing, I don't want to call it the quality of clients, but the type of clients that I attract is where I'm at. And then when I go through a certain, life event, then those are the clients that I start attracting. Right? Start coming in. I'm like, okay, what are the odds of this happening? I mean, it's like almost immediately, like a couple of days after I've healed, they all start coming to me for that. And I was like, what are the odds of this happening? Definitely the reason why I needed to go through that was to be able to help my clients to go through that. So it's kind of like what you always say, we have to grow into that person to help our clients and our customers. And that's exactly what's happening every time.
Yes.
Every time. It never fails. I see it all the time.
Oh yeah. I love it. Yeah. So let's transition back to the house for a second. Obviously in the kitchen, but in what other experiences and places did you see your future self show up?
Oh, I'm going to pull out because there is quite a bit.
I love it.
There's a beam that there was only one beam. One beam. And the funny thing is that David and I have been looking for a post and beam house because we love post and beam. Even if it's like the timber houses where they can just like put in timbers to make it look like an open, like a post and beam. We've been talking about that a lot. And every time we look at a house, we see them, we're like, oh, they've got exposed beams. Yes. And I loved it. There was just one. And so Michelle and I took a picture underneath the beam.
I love it.
It was awesome. The fact that I did mention this, the fireplace and just on the other side of the kitchen, the open concept kitchen and living room was definitely something that I've always, and even in my scripting, when I say I walk in and I see David, across the room, that kind of thing, a big spacious kitchen. So that was there. I always talk about the sun and things coming in, and this kitchen had a skylight, which I absolutely loved. So the sun was coming in, I was like, oh yes, this is my script. Sun's coming in. Oh, and one of the other manifestors took care of a ranch, which I absolutely love. That to me signified the property that I want, the land that I want, that we're looking to get. Because we do want animals, not necessarily horses, but we do want, like our own chickens. We want to be self-sustainable. So that ranch, theme was kind of like, oh, that fits right into what I want to do, which I thought was pretty cool. Oh, here's another one. The wind, the swaying of the trees. I talk about that a lot when I'm meditating. And I had a lot of trees swaying when I was, these are palm trees, but they were still swaying. I love that. And then I think most of these I already talked about, but, when I got back home, this was so cool. I loved this. David met his daughter's boyfriend and at one of her games, and her boyfriend asked David, "How much does Kate lift? She looks jacked." I thought that was the funniest thing. And she looks at me, she goes, "Yeah, he said," he goes, what did she say? She's like, yeah, he asked he asked David how much I could lift. And he told Mackenzie, David's daughter, he told her that I looked jacked because he saw me on Instagram. He's like, "Your stepmother's following me on Instagram. She's jacked." So, and that just goes along with how I want to be fit and muscular.
Yeah.
And he said, he brought that out. So I thought that was cute. So that's when I got back. He told me that. And the fact that there was $1 million there.
Yes.
And then some, that was another place. Yeah. And not having to worry about food costs because our lovely Cassie Parks bought us all the money. I mean, all the food for the whole week. And we were able to all enjoy some yummy, healthy food.
Yes.
And not have to worry about it. That was so fun at the grocery store.
Right.
I have never had so much fun grocery shopping, by the way. That was so fun.
It was amazing. 5 of us just like shopping and chopping up the list and what else do we need? Yeah.
Yeah. That was so awesome. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And that's when I realized I was cooking for everybody, not just bits and pieces. So that was even more fun. I was like, "Oh, well, then we need more of this. We need more of this." So yeah, that's, and I did touch on a lot of the other stuff that did pop up. Those were the biggest ones. I mean, it was just, what a great trip. It was just beautiful. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you see about her or your future self that you hadn't seen or you didn't know yet?
That's a good question. I was really calm. Like, in the past, when I've cooked for big groups like that, I've never cooked for that big of a group actually, but for a larger group other than just my family, I would always be like fretting, like, "Oh, I gotta do this. I don't have time to talk while I'm doing this." And I want, because I love to cook, I wanted to be able to enjoy the cooking.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that at all. I was so laid back. I didn't feel rushed. I didn't feel like overwhelmed or anything. So I don't feel that way when I have get-togethers, which is so awesome.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as, I'm trying to think if there was anything deeper than that. I think just being more present too. I mean, I know that that's what I want, and I'm getting there anyway, more and more. But it was really nice to just sit and really listen to other women's stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love
and really
that.
get to know them. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
You spoke a little bit about this, so we might have covered it, but I want to ask it anyway. Along the way, is there any times that you recall that you were really asked to step into her and become her and choose, nope, this moment I'm going to become her?
Yeah. The actual booking the flight and coming, and actually coming, because I had thought about canceling because of some things, right? So I was like, about canceling, and I was like, no. So actually going and showing up, it was huge.
Yeah.
And not listening to those voices in there. And that definitely was a big one. And even though I was a little nervous about cooking at first when you asked me, because I was like, "Oh my God, is everybody going to like this? I'm forcing everyone to eat my way." Those things kind of crept in. And I was like, nope, this is going to be perfect. Everyone's going to, so shutting those down too.
Which is your future self. That is a great example because everyone you surround yourself in the future, they're like okay with it, right? It's not you don't have any worries about it. They do, because they're probably, if you're doing this bigger group, they're likely your clients, right?
Exactly.
Or they're people who have chosen. And so what a great way to be asked to step into your future self and be like, no, it's awesome. I'm surrounded by people who will enjoy this and love it and rave about it and ask for my cookbook. And
and I got asked that like 4 times.
I know. Right. I know.
It's great.
Right. It is great. As we were doing this, I'm like, and you should have the left side should be a picture from the photo shoot and the right side should be the recipe. We could do a digital, yeah, like it would,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's all about the energy. I love, yeah,
That's so awesome.
you know.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that too. They were talking 4 times the cookbook came up, so I think I'm gonna have to do a cookbook.
Yeah, for right. Yeah.
But I would say those are the two huge ways she showed up. Were those. And actually, in this time when we did photos, I wasn't nervous. I was just like, okay.
I saw that. It was, and the photographer could tell, right? There was one point, at one point of the day, and she's coaching other people. She's like, don't worry. She was nervous 6 months. Like, I think it was 6 months ago, but it was like, she wasn't this because I picked you to go first because you'd been there. Right.
Right.
And you could see, like, for me, that was the most visible moment where I could see your growth in your future self. Like, you jumped up, you're like, all right, I'm first. Cool. This is me. Like, you just you leapt into her literally. And it was like, yep, there she is. Right.
I sure did.
And it was awesome to witness both the growth, but also the boom, I'm in my future self. Because if I would have asked you 6 months ago, did you step into her? You would have said yes, and it would have been truthful, right? But it was as much as you knew of her back then,
right?
And now you know so much more. So it's this whole other version, which is amazing and deeper and gorgeous and all those things, right? And calm, yeah,
very calm,
yeah,
very calm. And I've noticed that a lot more. Like every week when we get, do our calls and you ask us how we showed up. And that's usually one of the ones. That and confident always comes up, but it's so true. I'm feeling more and more calm and confident all the time, every day. And, I'm not just saying them, I actually truly feel them. And I think it's just, because I ended up having to do a talk and I thought it was going to be one talk and ended up being 5. And I was like, okay, I just kind of shrugged it off. I was like, okay, I was so confident that I could do it. And it didn't cross my mind once when they said, oh no, you're doing 5. And I was like, okay, no big deal. Whatever. Didn't even bat an eyelash.
I love it.
So I definitely see it too. It's kind of like you and Jenny talk about it too. Like I have to remind myself where I was.
Yes.
It wasn't that long. A year isn't that long ago, but it is.
Yeah.
And a lot has happened in that year. So I really do have to remind myself where I was. And sometimes, now the growth isn't as big as it was in the beginning. It's just deeper. So I have to really pay more attention to that. And to do that is I kind of reflect where I was and where I am now. And it's like, oh, that's where it is. It might be more subtle, but it's definitely deeper.
Yeah. Absolutely. Would you compare that? I don't know if this is right or not. I'm genuinely asking. Would you compare that to like getting to a certain level of fitness and you don't necessarily get a ton faster, but like seconds start to count, right? Seconds start to become growth or, versus, oh yeah, I shaved a minute off. It becomes about the seconds.
Yes, totally agree. I would definitely use that same analogy. Absolutely. That's a great analogy, actually.
I love it.
Yep.
Cool.
That's so amazing.
I think it'll help you remember too more, right? Like, I'm
absolutely.
doing seconds now. You're in the work where you save seconds. Like the depth is about seconds and but
I think that's great. I'm going to definitely keep that analogy. I love that analogy.
I love it.
Why I didn't think of that. That's great.
All right. One last question. Actually, before we do the last question, tell everybody how they can connect with you if they want to know how to be healthy and still have amazing food that is like so yummy and want to be coached, because I think the thing I love, the thing I love about you is your knowledge, right? And how you will make anything work for anybody, right? We just had a couple conversations where I'm like, yep, I knew I was right on that, but it was my intuition, right? And so if you want somebody who knows all the nutrition stuff, not just what people think is healthy or even the next level of what, people think is the new healthy, but what is really about health, and you want a coach for that, and you're ready to take your life to the next level. You're ready to make your life better through nutrition. tell them how they connect with you.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I really appreciate that. They can connect with me on all social media platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, and my website. So the website's k8forwellness.com, and that's the letter K, the number 8, the number 4, wellness.com. And same with Instagram and same with Facebook. So it's the K8 for Wellness.
I love it.
And a podcast. I do podcasts.
Yeah, and a podcast. I know. So fun. So as we wrap up, what advice would you give somebody who wants to step into their future self and is practicing that work?
Just 5 minutes a day. It doesn't even have to be 5 minutes a day. It can be 1 minute a day. Just do something each day that moves you closer. Because what happens is before you know it, that 1 minute becomes a half an hour, and you don't even realize it. So I always say do something at least a minute every day. Step into it. And that feeling feels so good that you just want to do more.
Right? That's what happens.
So that's what I mean by it goes from a minute to a half an hour. You're doing it, Yeah. That would be the best advice I could give somebody is just do, and we call it doing the homework, but it's really just doing it, even if it's for a minute and that's all you have, do it for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's amazing advice. Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing this part of your journey with us. I know people are going to get so much out of this interview. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you for joining us on The More Money Show. To learn how to identify your current money story, go to identifyyourmoneystory.com.